Hello and welcome to the John Ark Show. Today we're going to interview actor Pepe Serna. Pepe starred in Scarface, which is one of the greatest and most beloved movies of all time. He played Tony Montana's friend Angel Fernandez, who was dismembered with a chainsaw in the film's famous shower scene. He has also starred in more than 100 other films, including mega hits like The Jerk, Black Dahlia, Silverado, American Me, Caddyshack 2, Red Dawn, Car Wash, and many others. Before we begin, I want to encourage you to subscribe, like, comment, and follow us. We're going to have a lot of great celebrity interviews coming up, so I encourage you to click on the notification bell so you can be notified every time we upload a new episode. Now, let's say hello to Pepe Serna. Hello, Pepe. Welcome to the John Ark Show. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing excellent. Thank you very much.
Great to have you on the show. First, I want to congratulate you on your incredible career. You've achieved an incredible level of longevity in the entertainment business, and perhaps most importantly, you've lived your life with dignity and you've always behaved like a professional, and that is very rare in the entertainment business.
Yeah, I've run into a few.
Yeah. So everywhere I go, people ask me to get a star from the movie Scarface on the John Ark Show because they love the movie so much. The fans just love you and they love that movie. The first thing I want to ask you is, how did you get your first big break in show business?
Well, yeah, okay, I'll break it down. When I was 3 years old, my godfather had a boxing ring across the street from where we lived. And I would go watch the boxers, shadow boxing and stuff. And one night, when I was 3, I jumped up on the ring after they were all done and pretended to be shadow boxing and probably accidentally knocked myself out and got a big laugh. And then I kept trying to do the same thing over and over again, and it only worked the first time. So at 3 years of age, I was a stage actor. Then we moved to our first Caucasian neighborhood where the man next door was a doctor, and he invited us to his daughter's birthday party. And he filmed it on his 8mm camera. And then a few months or so later, we got to watch the home movie. So the movie actor was born at 6. And at 10, I worked on got on the Uncle Charlie St. John show, dancing to Rock Around the Clock, the first time I'd ever heard it in 1955. And so the TV actor was born. Now, in 1964, when I was 19, in college, I was auditioned, heard about a movie they were doing, Jacket of Blood and Gold, a bullfight movie, and they were looking for the lead for a bullfighter. And so all over town, anybody he asked gave him my name because I was always, my destination was Hollywood. My friend that was in the production with me in Mexico City took me to meet my wife the second day I was in Hollywood. And I've been with her going on 52 years now. And we've only been apart 20 days. So
wow, that's impressive. Well, what you guys, do you remember what you guys did on your first date? Where you went to?
Well, the first date, it was 6 months in between meeting her, and she would come over to where I was staying for the first 6 weeks, and I got to see her.
I'm curious, what was your wife's zodiac sign, and what is your sign?
She is a Scorpio and a snake, and I am a Leo and a monkey.
Oh, okay. And who approached first? Who approached who first?
She came after 6 months. She came to see the show, the improv group, and invited me home with her, and I never left.
Yeah, well, Scorpios are very good looking, so I understand.
Yeah. It was. She's very, very smart and opinionated, and I'm an actor. I mean, I'm really easygoing, and she's black and white. You know, she's. I mean, it's. It was really good.
So what was the first big movie that you did?
Well, my first big movie, my first 7 months in the business, a friend of mine from the improv group, the Synergy Trust, was a writer and wrote The Student Nurses. So he got me in to audition for The Student Nurses. It was a Roger Corman production. So that was my first one, but I did 5 feature films in the first 7 months. And I had
Those were all with Roger?
no. Roger, the second was the Johnny Got His Gun with Dalton Trumbo. I was kind of discovered really by Hal Wallace in Red Sky at Morning. And then right after Red Sky at Morning with Richard Crenna, Desi Arnaz Jr., Richard Thomas, just tons and tons of incredible actors. It was Universal. Right after that, I got Shootout with Hal Wallace again. It was Gregory Peck, starring Gregory Peck. I mean, that was the most amazing thing. And where I was first living the first 6 months, Marcia Trinder was a Lord Mayor of London's daughter, and she was a costume designer for hair in Mexico. And she and Yippee were friends, and she was doing her leather outfit. So then she brought Diane in to help her, my wife, and Diane started doing the leather outfits. But then she left. And so when we're doing Shootout, Gregory Peck rides up on the horse on the lunch line, and he says, I love your coat. And we're looking around to see who he's talking to, and it was my wife, leather out, elk coat that was floor length. And he said, where'd you get that? And I said, she makes them. And he says, oh God, I'd love one for my wife. And so I said, well, we've got some we're working on here. He says, well, come over for dinner tonight to the condo and show them to us. So we went over and showed. We had about 5 different ones, and they were in the process of being made. And he says, God, they're all great, but I want you to make one exactly like Diane's. So we did. And then he invited us after the movie was done. We went to Brentwood to his house, and what an incredible guy. I mean, and I really didn't know the history. I'm an actor that came from Sandlot football and baseball, and I had no idea. I mean, I had seen him, but I didn't know whose hands I was in already with Hal Wallace, the most incredible producer of Casablanca and all those incredible movies. But he tells me the story. He tells us the story of, and we were late to measure in size Veronique, his wife. And so they were having a dinner party. And so he's telling me the story of his great uncle, I think in 1906, had been thrown in prison in Ireland because he was a revolutionary poet. And they kept, his daughter came out and said, Dad, everybody's here. Mom says to come. He says, I'll be there. But he spent another hour with us while his guests were there just telling us stories and walking through the rose garden, and just what a gentleman.
Very dignified man. Every time you see him on the screen, very dignified.
Yeah.
So you appeared in a massive comedy hit with Steve Martin called The Jerk. And Steve Martin just exploded onto the scene back in the day. Can you tell us about working on that film, and how was working with Steve?
Working with Steve was really interesting because I expected him to be the guy that I saw with the arrow going from one side of his head to the other, but he wasn't. I mean, he was serious as a heart attack. I mean, he is so focused, and we would do the scenes, and he was totally there and welcoming. With any ideas, any kind of improvisational things that I would come up with. And of course, Carl Reiner, oh my God, to be working with him. Cause I was there in the car, and I was doing when the money situation came up, I had my hand like on the door, and I was like overacting a mile a minute. I mean, I was like, my fingers were going like, trying to get to the money, And Carl said, no, you don't have to do that. He was very warm. And I was doing a play at the time, and it had been in the newspaper, and he knew all about it. So I was impressed that he was interested in me, as the fact that I was doing a play and that he knew what I was doing,
Nice.
and not
Nice.
just about him, not that kind of star trip.
So you were also in another massive gangster movie called American Me with Edward James Olmos. Now, for anyone who loves the gangster movie genre, this was a groundbreaking movie because it was so realistic. What are your memories of working on that movie?
Well, this is an incredible story. Eddie, the first time I met Eddie was in 1977. I was doing a pilot for an offshoot of Medical Center, and Eddie was a glorified extra. He was just supposed to hit me and go into a wall. I mean, I was supposed to hit him and send him into a wall. And Gene Reynolds, do you know who Gene Reynolds? He was a uh, he was an actor, director, president of the Directors Guild for years, and had been in school with Elizabeth Taylor when he was a kid at MGM. And so he says, "Are you guys ready?" And we said, "Yeah." And Edward James almost said, "Excuse me," he says, "Could you bring me some boxes, cardboard boxes?" Because he didn't want to go into the wall. Me still today, 76 years old, and I'd run head into that wall just because that's my nature. But Eddie knew that he didn't have to. And I was very impressed. I said, "Look at this guy. He doesn't even have a line, and he's telling the director what he wants." And I was impressed by that. And he starts telling me that he's Eddie James in the Pacific Ocean. He has a band that plays at Gazzari's, which is a block away from the Whiskey A Go Go. And he says, "I have a script." The very first day that we meet, he says, "I have a script that I just got from Floyd Mutrix that he was working on in a movie with Aloha, Bobby, and Rose." And he says, he gave me the script, and you'll be the guy who kills me. And so 14 years later, I was the guy who killed him in American Me. That was the script.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah. And then, and from there, I got into Zoot Suit first, and I told Eddie about it. And so Eddie comes in and becomes the huge star that he's been ever since. I don't know if you know the story of Zoot Suit, El Pachuco. The Zoot Suiters, do you know about that?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. One day he says, "You're going to be the guy that kills me." And then 14 years later, he does have you kill him in the movie. What happens in those intervening 14 years? Were you friends in constant contact, or did he simply call you out of the blue 14 years later and honor the promise that he made?
No. We were instant friends.
Okay.
We were instant friends. And at the time, Eddie was married to Kaya Keel, who is Howard Keel's daughter from, Seven Brides for Seven Sisters, the great Broadway musical star that was on Dallas. But no, we worked on 13 projects in between. American Me was our 13th project that we did. So we traveled the world. I say the world. We were in Europe and Mexico and the Bahamas and Miami, and we did everything. We're still great friends. But see, I mean, that was Eddie's. He just had that foresight of knowing that he wanted to do that and that he was going to get it done. And finally, once he had he was nominated for an Oscar with Stand and Deliver, is when Universal came to him and gave him the money to do American Me, which was, I believe, about 16 million.
Well, I met him once. I met Eddie once, and he seemed very soft-spoken, very reserved, almost introverted. Now, when I saw him on Miami Vice, I thought, well, maybe this is just his character trait. But was he really like that and person when you knew him, throughout the years, or was that simply a character that he was portraying?
No, that was just a character that he was portraying. And it's interesting because the first scene, he said, he was just told me the other day, he had never heard this story, but that he did with Don Johnson is that Don Johnson walks in the first day. They had already been, it was maybe the third show or something, and Don Johnson walks into his office, and Eddie closes the door, and I mean, yeah, Eddie closes the door, and Don Johnson opens it. He says, "Keep it, close it," and Don Johnson opens it. He says, "Close it," and so they're having this little tiff, and supposedly Don got peeved at Eddie and walked off the set. But what Don Johnson didn't know was that Eddie had control of his character and what went on in his office. That's why he could act into the wall and do what he did. I mean, Eddie has always had that. I mean, that's why we're total opposites. And he's not that soft. He is that soft-spoken guy who does incredible things for the community, but no, he is like a powerhouse, like you can't believe. He's it's just amazing what to watch him. You know,
you were also in a crime drama called The Rookie with Clint Eastwood. How did you like working on that movie? And also, why is it that Clint Eastwood just keeps getting better and better as a movie maker? Is it because he is a vegetarian, you know, or is it just his genius? What's going on there? Because his movies literally get better every time he puts one out.
Yeah, and it's funny because when I came to Hollywood, I wanted to be the Mexican Clint Eastwood, and so I had a sombrero. And anyway, it's a long story, but then to get to work with him, and he never calls action, you know, and the crew absolutely loves him, and you just kind of start the scene, and it just kind of happens by itself. But he was just very much that guy, but. I guess because he's had that control over what he does and how he does it, that he's been able to create the movies that he wants to create. And that's the hardest part, even for the big time actors, is to get what they want from the studios.
So he did a movie called The Mule recently, and it was really, really good. I mean, you know the expression, sometimes less is more. Well, with Clint, it seems like everything he does, whether it's acting or directing, is so minimalist that the camera and the audience just loves it. What do you think? Is that his secret? You know, the less is more approach?
Yeah, well, you know, it's just that voice, and that he just lets the words come out, and you're just trying, you get sucked into and you just made me think of something, because one of my favorite, I've been directing improv workshops for 50 years that I've been doing it. But the secret, the best way to deliver a line, I found, that I always tell all the kids, no matter what you're doing, is to let somebody in on a secret, because then you get down and then you're one-on-one, and you're the only one that's going to hear this. And that's what Clint does, right? I mean, however it is, but he just sucks you in, that it's just you and him.
It's very effective. Even now, when you lowered your voice, it's very effective. So you also starred in a movie called Red Dawn with Patrick Swayze, which has become a classic. They remade it years later, but I think the original that you starred in was a lot better. How did you like that film?
It was incredible working with John Milius. That a lot of people don't know that it was him and George Lucas and Francis Ford Coppola and Spielberg, the USC gang, and the scripts that he wrote. I don't know why he didn't direct more.
What a great writer. Great writer. So now we come to one of the biggest movies of all time, and that is Scarface. This is what everybody's been waiting for. Now, this movie has taken on mythological proportions. Before we discuss it, I want to give you my theory as to what's driving the incredible and perpetual popularity of this film. Most people see Scarface as a gangster movie, which it is, but I think the reason it strikes a chord with so many people out there is because millions of people are stuck doing jobs that pay nothing and that are terrible, and they secretly fantasize about breaking free and starting a business of their own. And I think Tony Montana, in a strange cocaine fueled way, represents the entrepreneurial dreams of everybody out there who wants to strike out on their own. What do you think?
Oh man, you just nailed it. You nailed it. And you know what really what because it wasn't a hit when we first came out. That the rappers and the hip hoppers were the ones who brought it to the fame that it is now. Is that because that's the same thing you just said. That's rags to riches. That's like, oh man, I can come up with a song and now I'm famous and rich and I can get all the all the gold teeth and diamonds in my teeth and cars and anything you want. But that's it.
So, how did you get the role?
Okay. They wouldn't see me for the part. Edward James Olmos, they wanted for one of the major parts. I won't say which part it was, but he wouldn't do it because he thought it was too negative. But he helped them audition people for it, but under the condition that they would let him have 15 minutes with every actor before they went in to meet with Brian De Palma and the casting director. And so I got in and I was up for Stephen Bauer's part. So they flew us to New York and we had 2 days of round robin auditions. You know what round robin auditions?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's like where 6 different characters or people are auditioning for the same part with Al Pacino and then so after the first day, because of my improv, man, I was all over the place. I thought, oh man, here we go. I went back to the hotel and I told my wife, if I don't get this one, I'm going to be really surprised. Then the next day, I go in for the second day of auditions and I turn the corner and I see Steve Bauer speaking to Alex Gordon and just the body language. And I already knew they wanted Steven from the beginning. And if I was a producer then or now, I would still hire Steven over me as that character because he was that character. I mean, he was incredible. But so another friend of mine had gotten the part, my part of Angel, but he was making a movie in Mexico with Ryan O'Neal, Emerald, I think it was called. And so Eddie calls me. He says, can you, from the studio, he says, can you get here in 15 minutes? And at the time I lived 15 minutes from Universal Studios. And I said, yeah. He said, because I said, what part? And he tells me, and I look at it and I said, I had already read for the lead and now I'm reading for a part that has 3 lines, but I was never into how big the part was. I just love to work. I'm a Sandlot guy. So I said, okay, I go and I got the part because my ego. And then, so I got 25 weeks work. I mean, they paid me for 25 weeks.
When you first saw the script, did you realize how impactful this movie would be?
No, didn't have, saw that it was amazing. And the story of the Maralitos, I had Cuban friends that kind of told me the story and how Castro had let out a lot of the criminals and people had mental challenges. And so I knew that it would be very, very interesting. And being so on the one hand, how interesting it was going to be, I totally knew because there isn't that much work for Latinos. And the ones when it was really interesting is when there was a lot of Latinos in a project that you got to work with your friends and stuff. It's always amazing to be able to do that, And so in that sense, I knew it was going to be a special, but to be what it is, they don't even know what it is because they've been trying to do the remake ever since, right?
Exactly. And we'll get into that a little later. But I heard the Cuban community in Miami was so against the movie that they were forced to film parts of it in California. Is that true?
Yeah, yeah. Well, not that they had to film parts of it in California. They could only film a little bit of it in Miami.
Right.
It was only my scene. It was only the scene of going up to the hotel room, and that got shot there, and maybe a few other things. But Santa Barbara was a big house with Paul Shinar, the big mansion they shot in Santa Barbara, and the studio, Universal Studios. Yeah, on the stages there.
So, you know, the famous shower scene where they use a chainsaw to cut your arm off is considered one of the most violent scenes in cinema history, but they never really show your arm being cut. The camera turns away. Can you tell us what it was like to film that scene?
Well, I'll tell you what it was like to film that scene, but I'll go one step further. Is that the first time they ever showed it in Boston to get the rating, they gave it an X rating because they had my arm swaying, hanging, and so in order to get the X rating, they had to take the arm out to get the R rating. But I think that was a calculated move from something that I read recently on their part, was to make it so bad and to be able to take that part out that they would be able to get the most F words in the history of Hollywood in a movie.
Was it a long scene to film? Did it take a while?
Well, yeah, you know, it was set because it was in Miami going up to the room, but everything it took a few days, and it was hanging there, and it was really weird because De Palma really kind of just made notes and was always concentrated and stuff, and he had gone to his dressing room after I had a lot of the blood on me and stuff, and the editor said it was the first time in the history of filmmaking that he had ever seen anybody that got shot in the eye with the fake blood that didn't blink. Because it was so intense that I had no idea that I didn't blink, but it was just like that intensity of being murdered that way was just like such a horrendous thing. But like I said, I'm not a method actor. I'm just organic. So it was just, it was over. But when he was walking back from the dressing room, from his dressing room, and I was just sitting there, you know, just thinking of how I was going to play the rest of the scene and stuff. And he walks by and he looks at me out of the corner of his eye and just like, he just kind of giggled a little bit.
So after filming that scene, when you take a shower in real life now, does your arm start to shake and tremble just out of muscle memory? Do you get some weird feelings?
No, but I later on I did do a movie that just came out that was Going Rogue, where a filmmaker, a friend, somebody that had grown up in my hometown, wrote all these iconic scenes into my character. I was the lead in the movie of Going Rogue, so he did that of me. I forget. I was like doing something in the bathroom before I was going to shave, but it looked like me from the scene of Scarface. So he did that with a bunch, and it did a lot of different scenes. But no, I never. No, the birds took care of that. That's.
So there were a lot of great scenes in Scarface. What are some of your favorite scenes? What did you really enjoy?
Was some of my favorite moment was at the Hotel Fontainebleau, because now knowing more about how all the incredible things that happened there, and they were filming there. I wasn't in the scenes, but I was at the hotel, and I'm trying to think of the title of the book, the Holy Grail. You remember the book, The Holy Grail, about you know, the Vatican and the chalice and all that stuff. But and Pacino was walking by, and I'll tell you that. Well, he's walking by, and he's, "What are you reading, man?" And I says, "The Holy Grail." He says, "Don't buy no wooden nickels, man."
So,
But he never broke accent. He
yeah.
never broke the accent from the first time I asked him. I'll go to that because it was interesting. I said, "Hey, do you go out to parties and stuff?" He said, "Oh no, man, I can't go nowhere, man, because people think I'm crazy." Because he was always in character. But anyway, yeah. But that just being at the Fontainebleau, and that it was so an iconic hotel and everything, that was really fun. But being just being part of the rehearsal, James Hayden. I don't know if you ever. He died very young, and Al wanted him to play Stephen's part, but he wasn't Cuban, and he wasn't. But we had a party at James Hayden's house, apartment, for all the gang, because Al wanted us to get tight and get to know each other a little bit and stuff. So we took our spouses and girlfriends and stuff there, and got to be there. So that was all fun. We got 2 weeks of rehearsal before the movie started at Universal at the studio. So that was all great fun.
You know, we did some research on the movie, and we found out something really interesting. You know the scene in the beautiful house on the water where Tony Montana goes to visit Michelle Pfeiffer? Well, that house was at one time reportedly owned by President Nixon, and then later by one of his donors, B.B. Rebozo. Then it was reportedly owned by one of Pablo Escobar's alleged cocaine-running pilots named Robert Stridinger, before Stridinger testified against President Manuel Noriega and forfeited the home and served jail time. That was a really interesting house. And when you see it on screen today, it still looks fantastic.
Yeah, all those, because I did a few Miami Vices, and getting to go to some of those mansions, and being, when Edward James Olmos was doing it, we'd go down there, and I shot a few. So we would go when he was looking. They were looking for houses, and they were incredible. Hershey's mansion, Edward James almost bought. But yeah, they were. It's. I mean, I love Miami. I love the tropics.
I'll tell you something else interesting we found out. The staircase to the apartment where they filmed your shower scene in Miami still has tons of tourists taking selfies there. Only in America do tourists love taking selfies at the scene of a movie massacre. Have you ever gone back to that location?
Oh yeah, now it's a CVS. It's a pharmacy.
Yeah.
And I don't think the stairs are there anymore, but the people still come to take pictures in front of the building.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, it's an iconic. It's. I mean, that movie has gotten me more help. I had apartments. I got rid of everything. I live here in the desert near Palm Springs, but I would go into the Home Depot, and I would say, "Did you see Scarface?" They say, "Yeah." I said, "I'm Angel, the guy who had his arm sawed off." So, "Oh, you got to be kidding, man!" And I said, "No. Can you find me a nut for this bolt?"
Oh, that's fantastic.
Not, I don't want to cut in line for a restaurant. I need a nut.
That's fantastic, man. So, how did you like working with Al Pacino? I've never met him, but he seems like a real likable guy, really easygoing.
Yeah, he's so intense. You know, he was saying like he would never, like when he go to the ball game and stuff. He really couldn't do that much because he was just too famous. And it was there's a lot to be said about not being famous.
Not being famous, yeah.
It's wow.
I once heard Pacino say that he can walk around New York City as long as he looks at the ground and doesn't make eye contact with people, because the minute he looks up and people see his eyes, he says that everybody stops, and within a few minutes there could be 1,000 people asking for a selfie.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
are the
Yeah. I
pitfalls.
mean, and New York, that doesn't happen because New York, they just let everybody pass by. They see them, and it's just another day at the office, But Al is Al. There's
Now,
only a few people.
I'm guessing because of your, work in the Scarface movie that you probably can't even show up on the streets in Miami without people mobbing you as well.
Well, it's been a couple of hours since I did that, so so unless they followed my career, but
Yeah.
I've never had that problem. As a matter of fact, almost almost everywhere, the doctor's offices, anytime especially around a lot, there's a lot of Latinos out here, obviously, but I always ask them about if they've seen the movie because it's such an iconic movie, and it's not like an ego trip that, hey, I'm the guy from Scarface. It's more because I know how excited that they're going to be when they go home and tell their husband, dad, or brothers that they got to meet the guy that got that iconic scene. So I'm reliving it through them going home to do it. But I enjoy. I'm an improviser. I can't go anywhere into any mall or anywhere where I can't butt into any conversation that's going on with parents talking to kids at the food in the food area, and it's just improv. It's just I've been doing it my whole life, and I'm just that guy, that's always keep butting in.
Have any real life mobsters or gangsters ever come up to you and said that you inspire them to become criminals after seeing you on Scarface?
No, no, but maybe there was a couple that didn't tell me.
That's funny. When was the last time you went to Miami? Because I'm guessing that people would love to see you down there more
I'm trying to think. When was Miami? It was probably God about 8 years ago, 9 years ago that we had that they it was Manny Reese who has an organization where all the podcasters and everybody in this new media meet Latinos, and they were Scarface was what they were going to show. So it was just Steve Bauer, Angel, uh, uh, Salazar, and myself, Chichi, that were there as the guest. So that was my last time there for that, and it's so incredible. Now all the Cubans love it, but they didn't like the idea then because it just showed it in such a
often.
negative stereotypes.
It's interesting how time changes things, the
Yeah.
passage of time. So you've appeared in more than 100 movies and countless hit TV shows. How were you able to achieve such incredible success and longevity when most people can't even last a year or two in the entertainment business? Is it your work ethic? Is it something else? Is it your love of the business? What's going on there?
My work ethic, I don't know why I haven't done more because I am the best guy on the set. I never go to my dressing room. I'm on the set, I'm a cheerleader. I'm like anybody that wants to run lines, just get the vibe of how fortunate we are to be doing what they dream of. And people get so locked into fame and fortune and all this crazy stuff that then for me, the story is the star. And that's what needs to be. And that's what I try to instill in everybody. So yeah, I'm very fortunate that way that I had that since being a kid, and I take it back all to the Sandlot. That I was always a quarterback and always wanting everybody to score, and I was, and you'll see it in my documentary where Edward James Olmos, I would call, they were shocked because I was the one working first, and I would go up for something and I would call them all up, Eddie, any of them, all the other guys, and say, hey, call your agent, man. I just went up for such and such a part. And they say, why are you calling me for the part that you went up for? I said, because if I don't get it, I want you to get it. And they don't understand. People are just so uh,
Now, if somebody said that to me, I would never forget it. Never. That's a true testament to your character. It really is. Very impressive thing to do.
Yeah, it is, and I take no credit for it because that's just the way. You know what I mean? It's well, one friend of mine who was a Buddhist, and I was doing my workshops, and what these kids had done, and he says, "Do you take credit for that, for what they did?" And I knew by the way he asked me that I wasn't supposed to take credit for it. I said, "I'll tell you tomorrow." So the next day I said, "No, I don't take credit for it. I accept cash only."
That's funny.
Because the cash is what they do. That's the payoff. Is the fact that they get to do something that they didn't know that they could do just by giving them a little hint. It's so much fun. I mean, I can go. I've done with different companies. I could go to any country if I had an interpreter, and with any company, and do my improv workshops, and they're a smash because it's always about them. It's not about me. It's why you've been to so many places with motivational speakers. And my thing is, I want to know what you have to say. I know how I did it, but the important thing is I want you to realize how you can do it. And the best way that you can learn how to do what you're doing even better than you're doing it is to hear one of your buddies that's in class with you that tells their story. And oh yeah, well, if he can do it, of course I can do it. You know, so it gets exciting that way when you can pass it on.
Now, you have been in a lot of great movies. Did you go out and seek these movie roles or television appearances throughout your career, or were they just offered to you because of your reputation as a great actor?
Only a few things have been offered to me. I have to audition, and I'm always joking with my agent. I tell him, once I audition, I say I don't want to do that movie unless they ask me to do it. Just my inside joke. Of course, I'll take almost any job. I love making movies, and I don't, and that's why getting back to the stardom thing is why I've been able to do so much is that I never became a star. I was never a star. After my first 5 feature films, my second year I made $2,000. The first year I made $9,600 for those 5 movies, and then I found out that if we got married, we could save $600 in taxes. So we got married on Christmas Eve, so we could save that $600 in taxes. The best $600 I ever saved. But it was, I just love to work. And I told my agent, I said, "What's going on?" And they said, "We can't send you up for just anything, man. You're going to be a star." I said, "I don't want to be a star. I just want to work." Hollywood is where I was coming since I was 3. I mean, really, everything I did, every sport I played, it was just performing. But when I got to Hollywood, I had made it. And without even realizing it, because this was my place where I wanted to come. As a matter of fact, when I came in 66, I got here in 69, the first time when going to the Marines, and we landed at night in LAX before we went to San Diego, flying in, and I saw all the lights as far as the eye could see. And I said, "Oh man, this is where I got to come and compete with all these people." It was like daunting. But I had already been to New York and worked, and this is part of my of who I am. Is my first night in New York, I performed on Broadway. I used to do the Harry Ape, Eugene O'Neill's one-act play, and so I was on Broadway's 72nd in Broadway, and so I did it out my window, the Harry Ape, the last scene from the Harry Ape, so that I could always say I performed on Broadway my first night. So that to me and auditions, they said, "Well, if you don't get the audition, then," but to me, it's all the same thing.
No,
I love doing it.
I've got to think, and correct me if I'm mistaken, but I've got to think that starring in Scarface is such a powerful calling card for you that it would open almost any door. If you went up to the front gates of the White House today and said, "This is Pepe Serna from the movie Scarface. I want to talk to the president," I'm guessing within 10 minutes you'd be in the Oval Office. Is that the case, or is it not quite that way?
You know, it's not the case because I've never tried it. I mean, not White House, but done that. But it should be, because everybody, it's almost like TVQ and having all that kind of, anybody from Scarface, especially that scene that is so iconic, that I should have. I'm always surprised that I'm not, that I don't do more, because not that I think that I'm better than anybody else, but certainly just as good.
Well, maybe you should start showing up at auditions with your own portable chainsaw or something. I don't know.
Well, no, yeah, well, that was going to be the title of my book. Was what's it like to work with Al Pacino?
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, you must be tired of that question.
No, I
But,
don't. But see, I don't get tired of it, because I'm improv. My improv, the best thing that I learned is it's called the yes and adjustment, and that works in life so well. Is that whatever anybody says is yeah and, instead of yeah I work with him, but I did this. No, so you go along with it and you add to it. And so if you do that in your life, if I don't feel like, we go out for drives every day out here in the desert, she has to go out to get stir crazy. So if I'm not feeling it, I just go yes. The yes and adjustment takes in all the time.
That's very effective. I once met, I'm not going to name names, but I once met one of the stars of Enter the Dragon starring Bruce Lee. And this guy's been in countless movies over the years, but everywhere he goes, the only thing people ask him is, what was it like to work with Bruce Lee? And, he answers reluctantly, but you can see he's just exhausted by the question. So you're also a very successful painter. Was that always an interest of yours?
No, I never became a painter till I met my wife. My wife, as you can see, all these colors, she created me as an artist. I was never an artist till I met her.
See, that's what love does. That's what love does.
When I was doing Red Sky at Morning in Santa Fe. Have you been to Santa Fe?
No, I haven't.
Oh my God, if you could ever do it at Christmas time. The luminarias are the little bags with the candles in them. But when they put them on the snow-capped adobe walls, and it's just the most beautiful thing. And I was doing Silverado. This is my favorite, one of my favorite things that happened. We always stay at La Fonda Hotel, which is right on the square. And nobody stays there, but I always get them to give me the money, and I get there, and then I'll get to wherever we have to go. They don't have to even come pick me up. I go to the hotel that everybody else is staying at. But it was so cold in the Christmas of '84 that we would have to bring our wardrobe home with us, because it was too cold to get dressed there in the morning and too cold to get undressed. So I would come dressed with the guns and the whole thing. So in the morning, at 5 o'clock in the morning, I go walking about a little over a mile from there in the square to the hotel. And I'm walking, and that was my favorite movie I've ever done in my life, is my imagination of all the cowboys being thrown out of the saloons, and my imagination would just run rampant.
You mentioned earlier that you lived in the desert. I really hadn't spent much time in the desert until one year I flew out to Vegas, and Vegas is surrounded by desert. And I was surprised. I didn't think I would like it because, the absence of greenery and everything is dry. But for some reason, there was a serenity to it that I liked. How do you like living out in the desert?
Oh, we love it. I had apartments for 10 years. And I lived on Balboa Island, which is, have you ever heard of Balboa Island in Newport Beach? Mm-hmm. It's a man-made island. And that was a phenomenal thing. We were there for 20 years, and in Eagle Rock, 22 years. But anyway, we were looking for this place. And now in the desert, I have a jungle in my backyard. We've always had jungles. We love the tropics. My wife is I don't know, all her Scott, Irish, but she's more Mexican than I am. She just loves the Mexican decor. Her house, every room is a different color, and it's all the Mexican decor. And we've always liked the plants. So I have hundreds of banana trees and palm trees, and I do a lot of the work myself. So I love it. It's just spiritually just so good.
Is it the quiet and the peacefulness of the desert that you find so appealing?
The heat.
Right.
The heat is what is we love the heat. I'd have to wake up early on Balboa Island to turn on the heater downstairs so my wife could come down because it'd be too cold.
You know, it's interesting you say that because most people hate extreme heat, but I love it because to me it feels like a warm blanket. There's something comforting about really warm weather. But so, how much time do you spend painting during your?
You know, I go in spurts because right now I've been working both on my memoir and my documentary, and so going back and forth, I spent a lot of time. So I haven't done much painting lately. But it's always, it's like my yard is a painting that keeps growing. You know, it's alive, and it's incredible. I had seen, we've always had jungles. We had a house in LA in Eagle Rock that had 30, it was built in 1925, it was Spanish Revival. And there was 36 windows, 8 doors, and we had it tiled. It's tiled outside. They were like 6-8 inches inset in the windows, and so we had it all tiled. And my wife buttered every tile for the tile guy, and she said, "How are you going to do this whole house?" And he says, "I'm not. I'm only going to do this window," meaning that he's just concentrating on one window at a time. He's not worried about the rest of it.
Well, that was a lot of fun. We really enjoyed having Pepe on the show. I want to thank our viewers for watching and tell you that we're going to have more great celebrity interviews coming up and more breaking news stories in the near future. So we want to encourage you to subscribe to the channel and click on the notification bell so you can get notified every time we post a new episode. Thank you, and we will see you soon.